Before we begin, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you never miss our amazing emotional stories. Marcus Chen had always been the type of person who loved attention. At 28 years old, he had built a modest following on social media by pulling pranks and creating what he called social experiments around London. His videos usually got a few thousand views, but lately the numbers had been dropping. He needed something big, something that would go viral and bring back his audience. On a cold Tuesday morning in November, Marcus woke up with an idea that made him grin. He had been scrolling through his phone the night before and stumbled upon videos of the royal guard standing outside Buckingham Palace. People always tried to make them laugh or react, but the guards remained perfectly still, like statues. Marcus thought this was the perfect opportunity for his next video. He grabbed his camera equipment and his bright red megaphone that he had used in previous pranks. The megaphone was loud enough to be heard from a block away, and Marcus knew it would definitely get attention. He called his friend Jake, who usually helped him film his videos, but Jake was busy with work. Marcus decided to go alone. He would set up his camera on a tripod and film everything himself. The journey to Buckingham Palace. It took about 40 minutes on the underground. Marcus felt excited and nervous at the same time. He had pulled many pranks before, but something about this one felt different. Maybe it was because he would be dealing with the royal guard. Or maybe it was because he was so desperate for views that he was willing to push boundaries further than usual. When Marcus arrived at the palace, he saw crowds of tourists taking photos and admiring the famous guards in their red uniforms and tall bearskin hats. The guards stood perfectly still, their rifles held at their sides, their faces showing absolutely no emotion. Marcus watched them for a few minutes, studying their discipline and thinking about how funny it would be to break their concentration. He found a spot about 20 feet away from one of the guards and set up his camera on the tripod. He made sure the angle was perfect so that both he and the guard would be in the frame. Then he checked that the camera was recording and picked up his red megaphone. A few tourists noticed what he was doing and stopped to watch, curious about what would happen next. Marcus started slowly. He raised the megaphone to his mouth and spoke in a loud, cheerful voice. "Hello, Mr. Guard. Can you hear me? I just want to say you're doing a great job standing there." The guard did not move even a millimeter. His eyes remained fixed straight ahead, and his expression stayed completely blank. The tourists around Marcus giggled, and some started recording on their phones. Encouraged by the attention, Marcus continued. "Come on, mate. Just give us a little smile. Just a tiny one." He made exaggerated hand gestures, trying to be funny for his camera. Still, the guard showed no reaction. Marcus felt a small surge of frustration. He had expected this to be difficult, but he thought he would at least see some tiny sign that the guard was annoyed. Marcus decided to increase his efforts. He turned up the volume on his megaphone to maximum and started making silly noises. He imitated animal sounds, sang parts of popular songs badly on purpose, and told terrible jokes. Why did the guard cross the road? Because he was ordered to. Marcus laughed at his own joke, but the guard remained frozen like a statue. More tourists gathered around now, forming a small crowd. Some were laughing at Marcus's antics, while others looked uncomfortable. A few people whispered to each other, wondering if Marcus was going too far. One elderly woman shook her head and walked away, clearly disapproving of the behavior. But Marcus did not notice, or did not care. He was too focused on his performance and the views he imagined this video would get. Marcus moved closer to the guard, now standing just 10 feet away. Through his megaphone, he started asking personal questions. "Do your feet hurt from standing all day? Do you ever need to use the bathroom? What happens if you get an itchy nose?" The tourists laughed more nervously now. The atmosphere was starting to shift from amusing to uncomfortable. Then Marcus made his biggest mistake. He stepped even closer, now just 5 feet from the guard, and raised the megaphone directly toward the guard's face. "Can you hear me in there? Hello? Is anybody home?" His voice blasted through the megaphone at full volume, echoing off the palace walls. For the first time, something changed. The guard's jaw tightened slightly. It was such a small movement that most people would not have noticed it, but Marcus saw it. He felt a thrill of victory. He was finally getting a reaction. He opened his mouth to shout something else through the megaphone, ready to push even further. But before he could speak another word, the guard suddenly moved. In one swift, practiced motion, the guard stamped his right foot down hard on the pavement with a thunderous boom that seemed to shake the ground. At the same time, he swung his rifle from his side to his front, the metal parts clicking together with a sharp, military precision that cut through the air like a blade. Marcus jumped backward so violently that he dropped his megaphone. It clattered onto the ground with a loud crash, and the sudden silence that followed was deafening. His heart pounded in his chest like a drum. The crowd gasped, and several tourists stepped back quickly. Marcus's face had gone completely pale, and his hands were shaking. The guard's sudden movement had triggered something deep inside Marcus, something primal that made every nerve in his body scream danger. The guard now stood in a defensive position, his rifle held across his chest, his eyes still staring straight ahead, but somehow seeming more alert, more aware. The message was clear without a single word being spoken. This was a warning. Marcus stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, trying to process what had just happened. The megaphone lay on the ground between him and the guard like evidence of his foolishness. He wanted to pick it up, but his body would not move. His legs felt like they were made of stone. The confidence he had felt just moments ago had completely evaporated, replaced by pure fear and embarrassment. The crowd of tourists was completely silent now, all eyes on Marcus. Some people had their phones pointed at him, recording everything. Marcus realized with a sinking feeling that this was not going to be the viral video he had hoped for. This was going to be a video of him being humiliated, of him being put in his place by a royal guard who had barely even moved, after what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 seconds. With the same military precision, he returned to his original position. Rifle at his side, face expressionless, standing perfectly still once more. It was as if nothing had happened, as if Marcus did not even exist. Somehow, this was even more humiliating than the warning itself. Marcus finally found the courage to move. He bent down quickly and grabbed his megaphone, his hands still trembling. He avoided looking at the guard or the crowd. He just wanted to get his camera and leave as fast as possible. But as he turned toward his tripod, he saw 2 police officers walking purposefully in his direction. His stomach dropped. The officers were part of the Metropolitan Police, responsible for security around the palace. They had clearly been watching the situation unfold and had decided that Marcus had crossed a line. As they approached, their expressions were serious and professional, showing no sympathy for the embarrassed young man in front of them. "Sir, we need to have a word with you," the first officer said. He was tall, with graying hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to see right through Marcus. The second officer, a younger woman with her hair pulled back in a tight bun, stood slightly to the side, her hand resting near her radio. Marcus felt his mouth go dry. "I was just making a video," he said weakly, his voice cracking slightly. "It was just a joke. I didn't mean any harm." The first officer looked at the megaphone in Marcus's hand, and then at the camera still recording on the tripod. "Sir, you were using a loud amplification device to harass a member of the royal guard who was on duty. You were also creating a public disturbance and making other visitors uncomfortable. We've received several complaints about your behavior." Marcus looked around and saw several tourists nodding, confirming the officer's words. An older gentleman in a suit looked particularly angry, his arms crossed over his chest. A mother with 2 young children whispered something to the female officer and pointed at Marcus. His heart sank even further. "I'm sorry," Marcus said quickly. "I'll leave right now. I'll delete the video. Please, I didn't know I was breaking any laws." He was rambling now, desperate to avoid whatever consequences were coming his way. His mind raced with possibilities. Would he be arrested? Would he have to pay a fine? Would this end up in the news? The female officer stepped forward. "Sir, you need to understand that the royal guards are not entertainment. They are serving members of the military performing an important duty. What you did was not only disrespectful, but it could also be considered a security risk. Using a megaphone in such close proximity to a guard could be perceived as a threat or a distraction technique. Marcus had never thought about it that way. He had only been focused on getting views and likes, on making content that would make people laugh. He had not considered the guard as a real person with a real job. He had not thought about security or respect or consequences. He had only thought about himself. "We're going to need to see your identification," the first officer said, pulling out a small notepad. "And we'll need to review the footage you recorded. Depending on what we find, you may receive a fine or a formal warning." With shaking hands, Marcus pulled out his wallet and handed over his driver's license. The officer examined it carefully and wrote down Marcus's information. Meanwhile, the female officer approached the camera and asked Marcus to show her the footage. Marcus had no choice but to comply. He stopped the recording and played back the video, watching his own foolish behavior on the small screen. As the officers reviewed the footage, Marcus noticed that the crowd had grown larger. More people had stopped to see what was happening, and many were still recording on their phones. He could already imagine the headlines and social media posts. "Idiot harasses royal guard and gets caught by police. Attention. Seeker learns painful lesson at Buckingham Palace." His face burned with shame. The officers spent several minutes discussing something quietly between themselves while Marcus stood there, feeling smaller and smaller with each passing second. Other tourists walked by, some glancing at him with judgment, others with pity. A group of teenagers laughed and pointed, clearly finding the whole situation hilarious. Marcus wished the ground would open up and swallow him whole. Finally, the first officer turned back to Marcus. "Mr. Chen, we're issuing you a formal warning today. If you engage in this type of behavior again, you will be arrested and charged with public disorder offenses. Additionally, you're being banned from the palace grounds for 6 months. If you return during this time, you will be charged with trespassing." Marcus nodded frantically. "Yes, sir. I understand. Thank you. I promise this will never happen again." He meant every word. The fear and humiliation he felt right now had completely cured him of any desire to pull pranks at royal locations. The female officer handed Marcus a printed document that outlined the terms of his warning and ban. "Keep this with you," she instructed, "and I strongly suggest you think carefully about the content you create in the future. Respect for others should always come before entertainment value." Marcus took the document with trembling hands and folded it carefully, placing it in his jacket pocket. I really will. Thank you." He gathered his camera equipment as quickly as possible, his fingers fumbling with the tripod locks. The megaphone felt heavy and shameful in his bag. He could not believe that an hour ago he had been excited about using it. As he walked away from Buckingham Palace, Marcus could still feel dozens of eyes on his back. He heard whispers and giggles from the crowd. Someone shouted, "That's what you get, mate," and several people laughed. Marcus kept his head down and walked faster, just wanting to escape the scene of his humiliation. He found a quiet bench in a nearby park and sat down heavily, his equipment bag dropping to the ground beside him. For several minutes, he just sat there, staring at nothing, replaying the events in his mind. The guard's sudden movement, the look on the police officers' faces, the laughter from the crowd. Every detail made him feel worse. Marcus pulled out his phone and saw that he had several notifications. His heart jumped, wondering if somehow word had already spread about what happened. But the notifications were just routine messages from friends and spam emails. Still, he knew it was only a matter of time. People had been recording. Those videos would end up somewhere. He opened his social media apps and searched for mentions of the incident. Nothing yet, but it had only been 20 minutes. Give it a few hours, he thought miserably. By tonight, he would probably be trending for all the wrong reasons. He imagined the comments section. People would call him an idiot, a clown, disrespectful. They would be right. Marcus thought about his own footage, still on his camera. Part of him wanted to delete it immediately, to erase all evidence of his stupidity. But another part of him, the part that had built his entire social media presence on transparency, knew that would not help. The other videos would surface anyway. At least if he posted his own footage, he could control the narrative somewhat. He could apologize and explain, but did he deserve to control anything? He had been so focused on views and likes that he had forgotten basic human decency. The guard had been doing his job, a job that required incredible discipline and dedication. Marcus had treated him like a prop, like something to be used for entertainment. The realization made him feel sick. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Jake, his usual cameraman. Saw your location tag from earlier. How did the palace video go? Get anything good? Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Finally he typed, "It went terrible. I messed up badly. Can we talk later?" He sent the message and put his phone face down on the bench. The November wind picked up and Marcus pulled his jacket tighter. Around him, people walked their dogs, joggers passed by, and families enjoyed the park. Normal life continued as if nothing had happened. But for Marcus, everything felt different. He had been so caught up in his online persona, in being the funny guy who did crazy things for views, that he had lost sight of reality. He remembered when he first started making videos 3 years ago. Back then, it had been fun and innocent. He made comedy sketches with friends, shared his opinions on movies and music, and occasionally filmed funny moments from his daily life. His followers seemed to genuinely enjoy his content, and he loved the creative process. But somewhere along the way, things changed. The algorithm favored outrageous content, and Marcus noticed that his calmer videos got fewer views. So he started pushing boundaries. First, it was harmless pranks on his friends, who were in on the jokes. Then it was pranks on strangers, always making sure to get their permission afterward for the video. But as competition grew and his view counts declined, he became more desperate. The Megaphone had been a recent purchase, bought specifically because louder and more aggressive pranks seemed to perform better online. He had used it 3 times before today, each time getting mixed reactions but decent view counts. He had convinced himself that as long as he was not physically hurting anyone, it was fine. Entertainment was entertainment, right? Sitting on that park bench, cold and humiliated, Marcus realized how wrong he had been. Entertainment at someone else's expense was not entertainment at all. It was cruelty dressed up in jokes and camera angles. The guard could not defend himself or walk away. He had to stand there and endure Marcus's harassment because that was his duty. And Marcus had exploited that. A woman walked past pushing a stroller, and Marcus noticed the baby inside was wearing a tiny outfit that looked like a Royal Guard uniform. It was clearly a tourist souvenir, meant to be cute and show appreciation for British tradition. That was the right way to engage with the guards, Marcus thought. With respect and admiration, not mockery and harassment. He pulled out his phone again and opened his video editing app. His fingers moved slowly but with determination as he began working on something he had never done before. Not a funny video, not a prank, but an apology. A real, genuine apology. Marcus imported the footage from his camera, watching it again with fresh eyes. He saw himself through the perspective of everyone else who had been there. He saw an arrogant young man with a megaphone harassing someone who could not respond, all for internet points. He saw the moment when the guard had to react, when Marcus pushed so far that a trained soldier had to break his discipline to deliver a warning. He saw his own face go pale with fear. Finally understanding that actions have consequences, he began editing, piecing together the footage while adding his own narration. "My name is Marcus Chen, and today I did something I deeply regret," he recorded, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I harassed a royal guard at Buckingham Palace because I wanted views for my channel. I treated a serving military member with disrespect. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." Marcus continued working on the video throughout the afternoon. He sat in a small coffee shop, nursing a cup of tea that had long gone cold, completely focused on getting the message right. He included the footage of his harassment, not edited, to make himself look better, but shown exactly as it happened. He included the guard's warning stomp, his own frightened reaction, and the arrival of the police officers. Over the footage, he added his thoughts. "I want everyone watching this to understand something I failed to understand today. The Royal Guards are not performers. They are not there for our entertainment. They're highly trained soldiers from regiments like the Grenadier Guards, the Coldstream Guards, and others. They serve our country with honor and discipline. What I did today was disrespectful not just to one guard, but to everyone who serves. He paused the recording and took a sip of his cold tea, gathering his thoughts. Around him, the coffee shop buzzed with normal afternoon activity. Students worked on laptops, couples chatted over pastries, and baristas called out drink orders. Everything was so ordinary, yet Marcus felt like he was in a completely different world. One where he had to face uncomfortable truths about himself. He continued recording his narration. I've been making content for 3 years, and somewhere along the way I forgot why I started. I forgot that real people are on the other side of the camera. I became obsessed with views and likes and going viral. Today I learned a hard lesson about respect, dignity, and consequences. The police gave me a formal warning and banned me from the palace grounds for 6 months. I deserved that and more. Marcus added more footage, including shots of tourists at the palace behaving respectfully, admiring the guards from a proper distance. He found stock footage online of the changing of the guard ceremony, showing the precision and tradition involved in their service. He wanted his video to educate, as well as apologize. As evening approached, Marcus finished the video. It was 12 minutes long, far longer than his usual content, and without a single joke or comedic moment. The tone was serious, reflective, and genuinely apologetic. He knew this video would not go viral in the way he used to hope for. It would not get millions of views or make people laugh. But maybe it would do something more important. Maybe it would make people think. Before uploading, Marcus wrote a detailed description. Today, I made a serious mistake that I need to own up to. This video is my apology, and hopefully a lesson for others who create content. Chasing views and viral moments should never come at the expense of other people's dignity. Break from pranks, and will be rethinking the type of content I want to create. I'm sorry to the guard I harassed, to the other tourists whose experience I disrupted, and to my followers, who expected better from me. His finger hovered over the upload button. Once he pressed it, there was no going back. His followers would see his failure, his humiliation, his genuine regret. Some would mock him. Some would say he only apologized because he got caught. But some might understand and appreciate the honesty. Marcus pressed upload. The video went live at 6 in the evening. Marcus sat in his small apartment, watching the view count slowly tick upward. 10 views, 50 views, 100 views. The comments started appearing almost immediately, and Marcus forced himself to read them. Even though he was afraid of what people would say, the first few comments were harsh. Only apologizing because you got caught. This is just another attempt at going viral. Delete your channel. Marcus felt each comment like a physical blow, but he kept reading because he knew he deserved the criticism. But then something unexpected happened. A comment appeared that made Marcus pause. Respect for posting this and being honest about what you did. Not many influencers would admit their mistakes like this. Hope you'll learn from it. The comment had several likes already. More comments followed in a similar vein. This is actually a really mature way to handle this situation. We all make mistakes. What matters is how we respond to them. Former soldier here. Thank you for understanding why what you did was wrong and educating others. Mixed in with the negative comments, there were many positive ones. People appreciated the honesty and the fact that Marcus had not tried to hide his mistake or make excuses. Some people shared their own stories of times they had done something foolish and regretted it. The comment section became an unexpected place of discussion about respect, content creation, and personal growth. By midnight, the video had 50,000 views. By the next morning, it had reached 200,000. News outlets had picked it up, but not in the way Marcus had feared. Instead of mocking him, many articles praised his mature response to his own mistake. Influencer takes accountability after disrespecting royal guard, read one headline. Social media creator shows how to apologize properly, read another. Marcus woke up to hundreds of notifications. His direct messages were full of people sharing their thoughts. Some were still angry at him, and he understood why. But many were surprisingly supportive. A former royal guard even sent him a long message explaining more about their service and training, ending with, "Thank you for your apology. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong." Jake called him early in the morning. "Marcus, have you seen the response to your video? This is incredible, mate. Not in the viral prank way, but in a real, meaningful way. People are actually having conversations about respect and responsibility in content creation." Marcus smiled for the first time since the incident. "Yeah, I've been reading the comments. I didn't expect this response. I thought everyone would just hate me. Some people do," Jake said honestly, "but a lot of people respect what you did. Owning your mistakes publicly is rare these days. Everyone wants to look perfect online. You showed that you're human and that you can learn and grow. That's powerful." We talked for a while longer, and Jake suggested they meet up later in the week to discuss Marcus's future content direction. "Maybe we can create videos that actually mean something," Jake said. "Educational content, positive social experiments, things that make the world a bit better instead of just entertaining." Marcus liked that idea. After hanging up, he sat at his desk and opened a notebook. He started writing down ideas for new content. Videos about interesting history and traditions, like the real story behind the Royal Guards. Interviews with people in unique professions. Positive challenges that helped others instead of mocking them. Documentary-style pieces about his city. As he wrote, Marcus felt something he had not felt in years. Genuine excitement about creating content, not because of potential views, because the ideas themselves were interesting and worthwhile. He realized that his mistake at Buckingham Palace, as painful and humiliating as it had been, might have been exactly what he needed to redirect his path. Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into his new content direction with an energy and passion he had not felt in years. His first new video was a carefully researched piece about the history of the Royal Guards, featuring interviews with military historians and excerpts from his conversation with the former guard who had messaged him. The video was educational and respectful, showing the intense training and dedication required to serve in these prestigious regiments. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Viewers appreciated the depth and respect of the content. Teachers commented that they would show the video in their history classes. Military families thanked him for highlighting the service and sacrifice involved in these roles. The video got fewer views than his old prank videos, but the engagement was deeper and more meaningful. Marcus's second video explored the stories of street performers in London. He interviewed musicians, living statues, and artists, letting them share their journeys and talents. He approached each person with genuine interest and respect, asking thoughtful questions and showcasing their abilities in the best light possible. Several performers later contacted him to say that they had received more gig offers after appearing in his video. His subscriber count began to change in interesting ways. He lost about 15% of his old followers, people who had subscribed for pranks and chaos. But he gained new subscribers who appreciated his reformed approach. These new followers were more engaged, leaving thoughtful comments and sharing his videos with friends and family. The algorithm began favoring his content again, not because it was outrageous, but because it generated genuine interest and watch time. One afternoon, about a month after the incident, Marcus received an email that made him stop breathing for a moment. It was from a representative of the Household Division, the organization responsible for the Royal Guards and ceremonial duties. His first thought was panic. Were they going to extend his ban? Press charges? Sue him? With trembling hands, he opened the email and read it carefully. To his surprise, it was not a legal threat. Instead, it was an invitation. The Household Division had seen his apology video and his subsequent educational content. They wanted to offer him something unprecedented, a chance to spend a day learning about the Guards' training and duties. To create an authorized documentary-style piece that would help the public understand their role better, Marcus read the email 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. They were giving him a second chance, an opportunity to correct his mistake in the most meaningful way possible. The email made it clear that this was not a publicity stunt, but a genuine educational opportunity. They would allow him access to training sessions, interviews with serving guards, and historical archives, all with the goal of creating content that would foster respect and understanding. He immediately called Jake, his voice shaking with excitement and nerves. "They want to work with me, Jake. The actual Household Division wants to help me create educational content about the Guards. Can you believe this?" Jake was equally stunned. That's incredible, Marcus. This is the kind of opportunity that doesn't come along often. We need to do this right. No jokes, no gimmicks, just pure documentary quality content. They spent the next 2 weeks preparing for the filming day. Marcus researched extensively, reading books about the various guard regiments, their histories, and their roles. He prepared thoughtful questions and outlined the story he wanted to tell. This was not going to be another quick viral video. This was going to be something he could be truly proud of. The filming day arrived on a cold December morning. Marcus and Jake met their assigned liaison officer, Captain Williams, at a training facility in Wellington Barracks. The captain was professional, but friendly. Clearly committed to the educational mission of the project, Mr. Chen, Captain Williams said as they shook hands. I want you to know that we don't typically do this, but your apology and your subsequent content showed a genuine desire to learn and make amends. We believe in second chances, and we think you can help us bridge the gap between the public and the reality of our service. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. Thank you, sir. I promise I won't waste this opportunity. I want to show people the truth about what you do. Throughout the day, Marcus and Jake filmed everything from physical training sessions to drill practices. They interviewed guardsmen about their backgrounds, what motivated them to serve, and what the role meant to them personally. One young guardsman explained that he came from a family with 4 generations of military service. Another talked about the pride he felt wearing the uniform and upholding centuries of tradition. Captain Williams took them through the history of the various regiments. Explaining the significance of different uniform details and ceremonial practices, he showed them the weight of the bearskin hats, the precision required in drill movements, and the intense focus needed to stand perfectly still for hours while tourists crowded around. People don't realize that while we're standing there, we're constantly alert, one experienced guardsman explained. We're not statues or robots. We're trained soldiers who are observing everything around us. The stillness is discipline, not indifference. Marcus listened intently, filming everything and taking notes. This was exactly the kind of insight he had never considered before his mistake. He had seen the guards as objects, not as dedicated professionals with real skills and real purpose. During a break, Marcus found himself alone with Captain Williams in a quiet corridor. He took the opportunity to express something that had been weighing on him. Sir, I want to apologize again directly for what I did. I was disrespectful and ignorant. Spending today here has made me realize just how wrong I was. Captain Williams nodded thoughtfully. Your actions that day were indeed inappropriate, Mr. Chen. But what matters now is what you've done since. You could have made excuses or doubled down on your behavior. Instead, you took responsibility and worked to educate yourself and others. That shows character. Paused, then continued. The guard you encountered that day, I should tell you, he's actually here today. He's one of the men you interviewed this morning. He knows who you are and what happened. He requested to be included in this project. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He did. Why would he want to help me after what I did? Captain Williams smiled slightly, because he believes in teaching moments. He could have remained angry, but he chose to see this as an opportunity to educate. Perhaps you should speak with him directly. A few minutes later, Marcus found himself face to face with the guard from that terrible day at Buckingham Palace. In civilian clothes, the guardsman looked younger than Marcus had expected, probably only a few years older than himself. His name was James, and his handshake was firm but not aggressive. I remember you, James said simply. The man with the red megaphone. Marcus felt his face flush with shame. I'm so sorry for what I did that day. I was completely out of line. I treated you terribly, and you didn't deserve that. James studied him for a moment, then nodded. I appreciate your apology. Do you know why I stamped my foot that day? Marcus shook his head, eager to understand. I thought it was to scare me off or warn me to back away. James gave a small smile. That's part of it, but there's more. When someone gets too close or becomes too disruptive, we're trained to perform that movement. It serves multiple purposes. First, yes, it's a warning. But it's also a way of resetting our focus, and alerting nearby guards and security that there's a potential issue. That stomp and rifle movement is part of our protocol, not just a reaction of annoyance. Marcus felt another wave of shame. I didn't know that. I thought you were just trying to intimidate me. I didn't realize it was an actual security protocol. Most people don't, James said. And that's part of the problem. Tourists see us as decorations or entertainment, not as working soldiers. On any given day at the palace, we're dealing with weather extremes, standing for hours, maintaining perfect posture, and staying alert for actual security threats. And on top of all that, we have people trying to make us laugh, touching us, or in your case, shouting at us through megaphones. Marcus winced at the memory. How do you deal with that every day? How do you stay so calm and professional? James's expression softened slightly. Training, discipline, and pride in what we represent. When I put on that uniform, I'm not just James anymore. I am part of a tradition that goes back centuries. I'm representing my regiment, my country, and every soldier who wore this uniform before me. That bigger purpose makes it easier to ignore the temporary annoyances. They talked for another 20 minutes, and James shared stories from his time as a guard. Some were humorous, like the time a pigeon landed on his bearskin hat and refused to leave for an entire shift change. Others were more serious, like the time he spotted a suspicious person in the crowd who turned out to be attempting to access restricted areas. We're not there for show, James emphasized. We're working soldiers who happen to perform our duties in a very public setting. Every day we balance ceremonial traditions with real security responsibilities. It's a unique role, and most people don't understand the complexity of it. As their conversation ended, James extended his hand again. I respect what you've done since that day. Not everyone would have the courage to admit they were wrong so publicly. Use this experience well. Help people understand what we really do. Marcus shook his hand firmly. I will. I promise. The final documentary video took Marcus and Jake 3 weeks to edit. They carefully crafted a 40-minute piece that told the story of the Royal Guards with depth and respect. It included the historical background, the intense training process, personal stories from serving guardsmen, and importantly, it included Marcus's own journey from ignorance to understanding. In the video's conclusion, Marcus appeared on camera in the same park where he had sat after the incident. 2 months ago, I made a terrible mistake at Buckingham Palace. I thought I was being funny, but I was actually being cruel and disrespectful. The Royal Guards aren't entertainment. They're dedicated soldiers upholding an important tradition while serving real security functions. I learned that the hard way. He continued, but I also learned something else. I learned about second chances and the power of education. The household division could have simply left me with my ban and my shame. Instead, they gave me an opportunity to learn and to help others learn. That generosity changed my life and my understanding of what content creation should be about. The documentary was released on a Saturday morning. Within hours, it was being shared across social media platforms. But for completely different reasons than Marcus's old videos. Teachers shared it for classroom use. Military organizations praised its accuracy and respect. Tourism boards in London recommended it to visitors planning to see the changing of the guard ceremony. Major news outlets picked up the story. Not about the original incident, but about the transformation in the final documentary. From viral prankster to serious documentarian, one creator's journey of redemption, read one headline. How a foolish mistake led to award-quality educational content. Read another. The video won several awards over the following months, including recognition from military organizations and documentary film societies. But for Marcus, the most meaningful feedback came from serving guardsmen and their families, who thanked him for showing the reality of their service with honesty and dignity. Marcus's channel evolved completely over the next year. He produced documentaries about various professions, traditions, and communities, always approaching his subjects with respect and genuine curiosity. His subscriber count grew steadily, reaching numbers far beyond what his prank videos had ever achieved. But more importantly, the quality of engagement improved dramatically. His comment sections became places of thoughtful discussion, rather than just emoji reactions. Jake became his full-time production partner, and together they formed a small production company focused on educational content. They hired 2 additional team members and began taking on commission projects for museums, cultural organizations, and educational institutions. 1 year after the incident at Buckingham Palace, Marcus's ban from the palace grounds expired. He received a letter informing him that he was now welcome to visit again as a regular tourist. Along with the official letter was a personal note from Captain Williams. It read, "Mr. Chen, your ban has expired, but the impression you've made since that day will last much longer. You turned a moment of poor judgment into a catalyst for meaningful change. That is the mark of true character. Yours in service, Captain Williams." Marcus kept that letter framed in his office, a reminder of the day his life changed direction. He occasionally visited Buckingham Palace now, but only as a respectful observer, standing back with other tourists and admiring the guards from a proper distance. Sometimes he recognized faces, including James, though they never acknowledged each other publicly. That was not the guard's role while on duty. His old megaphone sat in a closet somewhere, unused and forgotten. Marcus had considered throwing it away many times, but kept it as a personal reminder of who he used to be and how far he had come. Every time he felt tempted to chase easy views or create content that might exploit others for entertainment, he remembered the weight of that megaphone and the shame of that. November Day, Marcus often spoke at content creator conferences and workshops now, sharing his story as a cautionary tale and an inspiration. "Going viral used to be my only goal," he would tell audiences. "But viral moments are temporary. What matters is creating content that has lasting value. Content you can be proud of years later. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I'm grateful I learned it at all." His story became a case study in social media courses about the responsibility of content creators and the power of genuine accountability. Young influencers reaching out to him for advice became so common that Marcus started a mentorship program, helping new creators think about their content's impact and their responsibility to their subjects and audiences. On the 2nd anniversary of the incident, Marcus uploaded a reflection video. In it, he revisited the park bench where he had sat in shame 2 years earlier. "This bench is where I sat after making one of the biggest mistakes of my life," he told the camera. "I was humiliated, scared, and confused. But I was also at a turning point. I could have blamed everyone else, deleted my apology, and gone back to what I was doing. Or I could have used that moment to become better." He looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this and you create content online, I want you to ask yourself, will you be proud of what you're creating 5 years from now? Are you treating your subjects with dignity? Are you making the world a little bit better, or just adding to the noise? These questions changed my life. I hope they might help change yours too. The video ended with Marcus walking away from the bench, the camera slowly panning up to show Buckingham Palace in the distance, where the guards continued their timeless duty, standing with honor and discipline as they always had, representing something far greater than any viral moment could ever capture.